daylight savings time. Today is that magical day. And I decided 2 weeks ago, I'm not doing my podcast anymore because it's a giant time suck and I don't really see the point. And since making that decision, I've had all these extra podcast interviews because I'm like, well, I want to have this conversation with this person and I want to have this conversation. So it doesn't seem to really be unfolding as though I'm getting rid of the podcast. Earlier this week with the JQ up so loud with like Kanye and Kyrie and whatnot, I reached out to our mutual friend, Charles Eisenstein, and I was like, can you hop on to talk about the JQ? So that happened. And then yesterday I was like, I really want to talk to someone about daylight savings time and what this scam is all about. Of course, you are, the primary person, the only person in my brain who I could reach out to. And I'm so grateful that you were this last minute enthusiastic yes. So welcome on my seem to be continuing podcast.
Well, a whole bunch of things. I want to go bullet point to respond to all those points you said, but first and foremost, thank you for having me. I love the topic of daylight savings time. So when you sent me that invitation, like I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I would love to talk about this. So, and I'd love to talk about it in dialogue as opposed to monologue. So this is fantastic. I mean, it's not like I know anything. I just have some thoughts on it. And I'd like to maybe like talk through those. Secondly, what I think is really interesting about what you're saying about the podcast. I mean, first, like, just to reflect back, like the thing that changed is your idea of what the podcast is. Right. Like, right. That went away. You're like, I dropped that. But then all this other stuff kind of like flowed really naturally and authentically once that was dropped. But what's so interesting is I spoke to Emily today, our mutual friend, and she and I do a podcast, as you know. And it kind of came to like, well, where are we with this? Like, like, have we taken this as far as it can go? And we kind of agreed. We're like, well, at the very least, let's put it to bed for now. Like, let's give it a nap. And we're like, well, it's perfect because our next episode is episode 33. And so we're like, okay, this feels like a really nice way to lay it on the ground. I'm like, okay, that to like walk away from this. And so you sent me this link for what we're speaking upon now on Zoom, and you made reference to 33. So I thought that was kind of funny because I link you and Emily in my mind as well. You said 33 minutes. And then what you said in the beginning of this conversation was exactly what me and Emily were talking about, was like this kind of idea of like, well, let's just like put it down and see what happens. We're not saying like we don't ever want to work together or even stop with that. Just like, let's just stop what we were doing and see what comes from it. So it's very much in alignment, which I think might be a nice bridge into maybe what daylight savings times is, which is like how not to be in alignment, I suppose.
Completely. Yeah. And I may have mentioned this before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but my girlfriend, Elise, she watches your show with Emily nonstop. She tracks you guys a little bit more than I do. And so a couple of times I've mentioned synchronicities between us, and she's like, you, Emily, and Michael always have synchronicities going on. Like those are ever present with you guys.
Well, definitely. And one of the things and you've probably heard this too, like particularly with people you work with more intimately one-on-one, is your approach and to life, which I'm going to, includes understanding or looking for synchronicities, like that is received by the person. And the same thing happens to me. Like I get like feedback a lot, like, oh, wow, after we like had a conversation, like now, like everything's in alignment and I'm seeing all these pops. And like, I mean, it feels nice, I suppose. Like, yeah, like I got a magic power to make that happen. But the truth of the matter is it's just being able to, in my opinion, when synchronicities happen all the time, all it is feedback that you're paying attention.
Exactly.
And so it's an approach to life. So when I work with someone, or when you work with someone, we're sharing our approach. Like, this is how we see it. We're looking for it. And often like that's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most powerful effects of indoctrination is telling people what not to look for by saying this is what you should look for. And so it's just doing the opposite. Like synchronicity is life. Like, you know, it's all integrated. It's just like what you're looking for. And then how do you know you're not necessarily more integrated, you're just more aware. Maybe that's the definition of integration, but that's to me like how I see synchronicity. And undoubtedly one of the reasons why me, you, and Emily connect. I mean, obviously we connect personality wise, like it gels that way, like there's chemistry like that, but we also have a more foundational understanding of like how to approach life and what to look at. And we look for the patterns.
Yeah. Totally. I also think I started a synchronicity journal back in my early 20s and noticed that the more that I would track them and acknowledge them, the more that I would, I guess, acknowledge and see in my life. So I like having friends that are tracking, you know, the weird number things, the synchronicities, the synchromysticism, because then it amplifies that and augments that in my own experience of reality.
Well, isn't that just like the nature of what it means, like, you know, to be human? Like that's how our consciousness is wired, that wherever we put our focus, like, you know, you have this feedback loop and that grows.
Yeah.
And that grows. And so that's going to happen no matter what you put your focus on. And so when you're aware of that, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to put my focus, my intellect, my rational mind onto this like how I'm having a conversation with something else, which is real. We're not separate from it. Well, you're going to go and feed that. And then that becomes more and more present, at least in the conscious mind, like with definitely like, I think that's the way that to me is like when I talk to people about approaches, like, you know, this is what you're doing. You're feeding the things which are going to bring you to what, you know, at least a richer, more fulfilling experience on whatever the hell this is.
I love the 33 crossover this morning, and just like the odd, because I said, well, speaking to you in 33 minutes, so that aligned, and the synchronicity, which I know you and I will explore someday, that our dads both have the same birthdays.
Yes. Let me add to
and my dad, P.S., was born in 33.
You've got a double. You've got that right there. I want to add this to the 33 because the 33 is, you know, there's a lot of connotations which we can tie to it, like we see what it's connected to. Right. But you know, I never forget, like that's the LP speed.
Oh, that's right. 33 right? and a third.
33 and a third. But like if you like think about that, like for just like frequency and spinning, and then like, you know, like really like, I mean, that's another way of the nature of the realm. It's like through repetition from various the same thing presented in a repetitious way, but on different theaters. Like that's like gets deeper and deeper and deeper into the foundation of like, you know, how someone is going to interpret reality, which is then how they're going to act upon it.
Did you ever get into the 33 and a third book series?
I've never even heard of it.
Oh my God. So there's this book series called 33 and a third, which is all this like deep underground information about different record albums. So there'll be like a 33 and the third about Led Zeppelin 4. And it'll just be about like where they recorded and the equipment they used and like, you know, the lore behind the lyrics and all. So it's like deep music nerdery called.
Hold on. Are these like documentary, or is it book form or text form?
Book form.
Yeah, that scratches a pop culture itch in me really, really deeply. Like I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Check it out. You will definitely dig it.
All right. Well, it's funny because right after this, like I'm going to